The inbound play. Inbound. Yes, sir. Not past the game for three. Now throws to Roy. Brandon, a free winner out front. Hit it! Yes, he did! Oh, yeah! It's a new era in Portland. Mr. K still learn from the name.
Well, good afternoon, my friends. This is Blazers Game Day. I am your host, Chad Doing, and tonight your Portland Trail Blazers kick off a 3-game road trip with the first of back-to-back games in Memphis against the Grizzlies. Tip-off is coming up at 5. I will be with you until 4 until we kick it over to Curtis Long for your Trailblazer pregame show across the Trailblazers radio network. The Blazers will play in Memphis today, 5 o'clock tip. Tomorrow in Memphis against the Grizzlies, a 5 o'clock tip. And then Monday in Minnesota against the Timberwolves, a 5 o'clock tip. And then Portland will come back home to meet the Oklahoma City Thunder on Wednesday. And that will kick off a 6-game homestand. So the Blazers right now navigating through the final portion of the season with a number of guys out of the lineup. The injury report is not kind to the Portland Trail Blazers or head coach Chauncey Billups. And I will get to the details on that in just a moment. But I want to go back a couple of nights ago at Moda Center where the Blazers really did a good job of responding to their poor offensive performance against Charlotte. And I thought, as shorthanded as they were, put up a good fight against the Miami Heat. Unfortunately, they came up on the losing end. And really, it was a historically bad shooting night Sunday where they connected on just 3 of 32 from downtown, tying the lowest number of makes in an NBA game with at least 31 three-point attempts. But out of the gate on Tuesday against the Heat, they built a 10-2 lead. And both Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant were on fire. And after the Heat closed the gap to 10-6, the Blazers ripped off a 12-1 run, which was capped off by Anthony Simons.
Simons between the rings, goes left, hesitates, goes behind his back, pulls up, fades away, hits it. 22-7 Trailblazers to start this game.
Well, you got to love the start. That bucket put Portland up 22-7 with just under 4 minutes to play in the first. Portland would lead 28-15 at the end of one. Grant had 11 in the first, and Portland connected on 5 of 9 from distance. In the second quarter, Portland led 33-20 early in the quarter, but Jimmy Butler, with a three-point play, a bucket, and a dish to DeLon Wright, powered 7 straight from the Heat, cutting the Blazers' lead to 6 with 9 minutes to go in the first half, and Chauncey Billups called timeout. Portland responded with a 15-7 run, pushing their lead to 14 at 48-34 with 5:12 to play in the half. The Blazers would take a 10-point lead at 56-46 into the locker room. Grant led all scorers with 16 in the first half. Simons had 13, and DeAndre Ayton was dominant. 12 points, 10 rebounds at the half, and really took advantage of that matchup with Bam Adebayo. But he did not return due to a sprained hand on a scary fall in the second quarter where he elevated for a bucket and came crashing down. He returned in the game, but exited once again, did not return after half, and the Heat did a good job of taking advantage. They opened up the third quarter on a 13-4 run, cutting the Blazers' lead to 1 at 60-59. But Anthony Simons, trying to be Johnny on the spot, had an answer.
Simons between the rings, gets a screen to the wing, launches a three-pointer, buries it. That's just what the Blazers needed.
There you go, 63-59 Portland at that point. And thankfully, Simons was able to get the bucket. 7:57 to play in the third. But Miami, behind the hot shooting of Duncan Robinson, had 11 points in the quarter, used a 17-8 run to push their lead to 5 at 76-71. Miami would lead 80-76 entering the fourth. Portland struggled on offense in that third quarter, connecting on just 7 of 23 from the field. In the fourth, Ashton Hagans, on his two-way contract, doing what he could to keep the Blazers close.
Kicks to the corner for Hagans. He drives into the lane, stops, slips through, and banks it in. What a move by Ashton Hagans. He gives a little flex. 91-88. Strong move.
Nice to see Hagan's taking advantage of the opportunity. It was 91-88 at that point, and Miami just kept applying the pressure. They put the game away with a 15-6 run, which was capped off by the Heat's Caleb Barton.
Cross court to Thibault. Thibault for three. That's no good. 1:20 to play. Heat by 9. That would have made it a 6-point game. And now it's a big uphill climb for the Blazers. Martin corner three. That'll ice it. Chauncey Billups takes timeout as the Heat extend their lead to 12, 106-94, and a 6-point swing.
And the Heat would go on to win it by 10, 106-96. And Miami, with their defense and their pressure and the lack of DeAndre Ayton in the lineup, they held Portland to just 40 points in that second half. And after the game, Chauncey was asked about losing DeAndre Ayton.
Obviously we shot the ball much better tonight, but our flow was just much better. And that's a hell of a team over there. They came out in the second half and kind of picked up their physicality and called a timeout. Boom. We ended up picking ours up, back up. I thought DA dominated that first half. I really did. Offensively, defensively, he dominated the game. So to lose him was tough, but we went out there and fought and scrapped. Y'all already know how I am. Y'all know I don't make no excuses for none of this. We went out and still felt like we had a chance to knock them off. We just couldn't.
One of the big frustrating parts for Portland this year from day one up until now has been the lack of continuity. Guys in and out of the lineup. Some players have been lost for the year. Some guys have been out an extended period of time, and some guys are hit and miss when it comes to their availability. I mean, guys have been beat up all over the place. The Blazers, among the league leaders in games lost due to injury, also lead the league in games played by rookies. So it's really hard to find that, consistency with the lineup. And Billups talked about the frustration with the injuries.
Yeah, sure. It definitely does. Obviously, I'm hoping that he'll be fine, in a few days. If it's nothing really, obviously it's nothing broken. They'll get some more imaging on it, but I'm hoping that it'll be fine. But, man, we'll just see what happens, bro, and we'll figure it out. If he's in, he's out. We do what we always do.
He's in, he's out, they're in, they're out, all kinds of mess there for Chauncey Billups. He did discuss on trying to do things differently.
One of the reasons why Ant and Jeremy and those guys were able to kind of get going and get shots is because you have a rim roller. You got a presence at the basket. When you don't have that, it makes it tough. You see what they did. They started trapping that. They started blowing up Jeremy's pin downs. There's not that much you could do.
Tamani Kamara, he played 32 minutes, got the start next to Grant at forward. Finished the night with 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. He was 6 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 2 from downtown, and he shared his thoughts on the loss to Miami.
I think we fought. I think we made a little bit of mistakes, and Dio was injured, and a bunch of small stuff that I think we could control on the court that we could do a better job on. But I think overall it was a good game for us. I think we all played really hard. I think the objective that we wanted today is make sure we play aggressive, box them out, and I feel like we did all that throughout the whole game. So we just keep moving on.
One other thing I want you to hear from Kamara, he's one of those youngsters that's had a chance to play a lot this year, and his calling card is defense. That's what he's known for. That's his talent, his strength, but he also knows that in order to become a viable NBA starter or rotation player is that you've got to be versatile. And for him, that means stepping it up on offense and becoming a more consistent 3-and-D type threat. And he shot the ball extremely well against Miami and played a solid game. And he doesn't want to be a liability on that end. And he talked about that after the game.
One thing that I hate the most about who I am right now is being sometimes maybe a liability offensively. So just being able to work through that and be able to find my ways where can I get my shots and keep working. I know I'm a great shooter. I know I can take care of the ball. I know I can do all those things. So it's just being able to keep putting that work in and trust what I do on a daily basis. So I would say a liability like I can't play offense, but I'm just saying like in our system I feel like we have great players who have different strength and stuff like that. So if I'm on the court when it's critical decisions and we need a three or we need a shot, I take a lot of pride in being able to stay on the court. So I think that's where I'm trying to find myself, being able to stay there and not being the type of guy that just in for defense.
All right, there's Tamani Kamara. Like that, really like his attitude and approach, because he wants to get better and doesn't want to be an offensive liability. He wants to be versatile. And he also discussed the fact that especially in this first year. He's always learning something.
I mean, my goal was just try to get comfortable, try to understand my role and what I can do and what I should do, and I feel like that's something I'm getting better every day and improving every day, and just keep working, man. I feel like it's my first year. I have so much more to learn, and as a team, we have so much more to learn. So I'm just excited for what's coming up for us, for sure.
All right, multiple guys stepped up with good nights against Miami for the Trailblazers. I mentioned the good shooting from Kamara, 6 of 12 from the floor, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Jeremy Grant, 24 points and 7 rebounds, also had 6 assists. He was 7 of 15 from the floor, 3 of 5 from downtown. 12 points, 10 rebounds from DeAndre Ayton in the first half. He is stringing them together. Very unfortunate to see him go down with the hand sprain because he was dominant. I would imagine, at least the way I saw the game in my mind, if he stays in and continues to play, the Blazers probably win that game. And then 26 points from Anthony Simons, who connected on 4 of 11 from 3, 10 of 26 from the field. They got 8 off the bench from Matisse Thybulle and 7 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists from Jabari Walker. The Blazers shot 40% from the floor, 32% from downtown. They had 18 turnovers, which led to 11 points for the Heat, and they finished the night with 24 assists. Jimmy Butler, of course, the best player on the Heat's roster, and it's not even playoff Jimmy yet, but 22 points. He also dished out 9 assists and just showcased his ability, his versatility to be tough, to be a defender, to spearhead that end of the floor. He can run the offense, playing the point guard role, and it's pretty impressive. The Blazers now 15 and 42 with 25 games to go in the regular season. Your injury report for tonight, Malcolm Brogdon still out with the right elbow tendonitis, although the latest report on him is that he's ramping up his recovery process and should return to action soon. Scoot Henderson is still out with the left adductor strain. My guess on Scoot, it's not serious. They're being, very precautionary with him. He'll probably be back in the lineup by Wednesday when Oklahoma City comes to town to kick off that 6-game homestand. Shaden Sharp still out with the core surgery. Robert Williams, of course, done for the year. DeAndre Ayton listed as doubtful tonight with the right hand sprain, and then both questionable, Brown and Minaya. Brown with the wrist fracture. He's recovering nicely, and Minaya's on the G League two-way deal. So there you have it. Shorthanded once again tonight in Memphis for Chauncey Billups. And it's difficult. The frustrating part for me is that, it's all about development right now. Developing the young players, but when they're not available and unable to be on the floor, it really throws a wrench into what you're trying to accomplish out there. So we'll see how things shake out. The Blazers with back-to-back games in Memphis tonight and tomorrow. Monday in Minnesota, back home next Wednesday to kick off the 6-game homestand against the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll keep things rolling here. We will step into the Coach's Corner. We're going to come back with a scoreboard report, and then we'll dip into what's the scoot for the latest on Scoot Henderson. Tip-off's coming up at 5. Trailblazer pregame show at 4. You're listening to your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, checking your NBA scoreboard report. We got a busy night in the association, starting with a 4 o'clock tip in Detroit, the Cavaliers and Pistons. Right now, Cleveland favored by 8.5. 4 o'clock tip in Philadelphia, the Hornets and 76ers. Philadelphia favored by 11.5. On ESPN at 4:30, the Mavericks will be in Boston to meet the Celtics. Right now, Boston favored by 9.5. 4:30 tip up in Toronto, the Warriors and Raptors. Golden State favored by 2.5. The 5 o'clock tip in Memphis with the Trailblazers and Grizzlies. Memphis favored by 1.5. 5 o'clock tip in Minnesota. The Kings and Timberwolves. Good matchup in the Western Conference. Minnesota favored by 6.5. 5 o'clock in New Orleans. Pacers and Pelicans. New Orleans favored by 5.5. And the second part of that ESPN doubleheader in Chicago. Bucks and Bulls. Milwaukee favored by 4.5. And your nightcapper in Los Angeles. The Wizards and Clippers. L.A. a whopping 15.5 point favorite. And that is your scoreboard report here on Blazers Game Day. All right, in terms of his game, there's nothing new to report in regards to Scoot Henderson. The big frustration for him right now is he's out with that left adductor strain. He has not played since the All-Star break when he had a chance to participate in All-Star Weekend in the Rising Stars Challenge. From what I have been told, the Blazers are just being extra cautious with Scoot Henderson, especially with a number of guys recently or in recent history who have dealt with a different type of core issues. They're taking it easy with Scoot Henderson. They want him to be okay, and they do expect him back. If not on this road trip, definitely back by the game against Oklahoma City on Wednesday when they kick off the 6-game homestand. And at that point, the Blazers would have, 22 games remaining in the season. You know, the biggest factor for Portland right now is to evaluate the young players and also to see what it looks like with Scoot and Ant on the floor together, where both guys are being forced into different situations, either on ball or off ball, because they're trying to evaluate what they have and then be able to understand which players they believe are going to be a part of the future. So it's very unfortunate for the front office and for the coaching staff to not have access to those guys, and really frustrating for Scoot because going into the All-Star break, he had gone through his best stretch of basketball, playing with confidence, doing the things the way the coaches wanted. And you probably remember Chauncey Billups just raving about his attitude, his approach, the way he's dealt with every situation throughout the course of the season. And with the way things are going right now, it'd be great to have him on the floor. So I think it's just a tremendous loss. And the other problem is when you have young guys on the floor, guys like Delano Banton or Ashton Hagans, and you've got this mixed match of players, it's really hard to evaluate game to game based on what you have because you have guys on the floor that don't understand the full offense. They can't execute the way that you want. It makes it more difficult for the veterans that are on the floor because you don't have the normal spacing. And so that's the kind of mess it creates. So for Scoot, he just needs to continue to rest. He is chomping at the bit. He wants to play. In fact, we were talking with Sean Hyken a couple of days ago from Rose Garden Report, and he said, hey, if it were up to Scoot, he'd be out there on the floor. But the Blazers don't want to take any chances with him, and so they're going to continue to take it easy on him to make sure he's going to be okay. But I do expect him back, if not tomorrow or Monday, in the second game against Memphis or that road finale against Minnesota. Definitely will be back in the lineup by Wednesday when they take on Oklahoma City. So frustrating for sure. And, if you're the Blazers right now, you just want to continue to get a look at these young guys so you know what you have. And that goes back to the frustration that Chauncey's talked about. I mean, listen to this. This is the injury frustration he's dealing with. And it's been throughout the entire year.
Yeah, sure. It definitely does. Obviously, I'm hoping that he'll be fine, in a few days. If it's nothing really, obviously it's nothing broken. They'll get some more imaging on it, but I'm hoping that it'll be fine. But, man, we'll just see what happens, bro, and we'll figure it out. If he's in, he's out. We do what we always do.
Yeah, it stinks. Really stinks. Even for a guy like DeAndre Ayton who's, playing his best stretch of basketball, now he's nicked up. He's not going to play tonight, or at least it doesn't look like he's going to play, listed as doubtful. I mean, you want these guys on the floor so you can continue to evaluate and see what you have. And for Scoot Henderson, I just appreciate the way he's gone about his business through all the struggles this year. And I want him to finish out the year strong, go into the offseason with confidence, have his rookie season behind him, and then be able to get himself really ready to go for camp next year. Because the way I look at Scoot is with his, physical attributes, with his mental approach, and the way he has continued to work individually on his game, imagine the jump that he could potentially make from year one to year two. And I think of all the things about this Blazers team right now with the coaching staff. I know everyone's got their take on what they think of Billups or whatever, but I think they've done a good job with the young guys. We've seen progress throughout the year with Tamani Kamara. We've seen the leap in play from Jabari Walker year one to year two. Shaden Sharp was starting to show some flashes. And then Scoot Henderson's made progress after a brutal start to his rookie campaign. But the biggest, stumbling block for Portland right now is just not having access to Scoot or Shaden. In regards to Shaden Sharp, the plan, according to Chauncey Billups, is to get him back on the floor before the end of the season. And I don't know how many games that would be. He could probably get a chance to play with maybe 10 games remaining or just under 10 games remaining. But if they could have a situation where you get Ant and Shaden back to where they can maybe piece together a couple of weeks before the end of the season, I think that would be golden for the franchise just to continue to evaluate and get those guys more minutes. And I do know from people I've spoken with, like Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp is just, he's dying to get back out there. Elsewhere in the NBA, if you look at the standings as we near playoff time, the Eastern Conference right now being dominated by Boston. They're 8 games in front of the second-place team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Cleveland and Milwaukee, 8 games back, and then there's 4 games that separate the third-place team, Milwaukee, all the way down to New York, who's 12 games back. So really what you have right now is Boston and everybody else in the Eastern Conference. The question is, who in the East can challenge Boston? My guess right now would be no one, but we'll see if Cleveland or Milwaukee, if maybe they can figure things out defensively, can make, a push. The Knicks have had a good season. Philadelphia has struggled with the loss of Joel Embiid, but he said a couple of days ago that his plan is to come back before the end of the regular season, regardless of record, to get back on the floor. And maybe Philadelphia, once they get Embiid back, can be a threat. But right now, Boston, dominant, both home and away. A great defensive team and playing good basketball, and they look like a team that's destined for the NBA Finals. Now, in the Western Conference, a little more murky in terms of the standings. Minnesota's atop right now at 42-17. They lead Oklahoma City by a game. They're a game and a half in front of the Denver Nuggets, 4 games in front of the LA Clippers, 7 in front of the Phoenix Suns. Now, I think most of us look at the West and we're like, okay, Denver's the defending champ. They're the best team in the NBA. That's the way I see it, especially with Jokic playing the way he has right now. So are Oklahoma City and Minnesota legit? Can they truly challenge a team like Denver in a 7-game playoff series with their lack of experience come postseason time? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm curious to see what it might look like with Minnesota and Denver, with the Timberwolves doing a little bit differently than everyone else with their size, with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. And I like Oklahoma City's young talent. I think regardless of their playoff success, just continuing to get more experience in the postseason with the type of pressure and the defense you're going to face, they're a team that's on the rise. My guess would be the Clippers and the Suns might provide the best challenge to Denver because of their veteran-laden rosters and the star power they have. Obviously, with the Clippers, you got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, 2 legit players. And in Phoenix, you got Kevin Durant. And the Suns have played better basketball of late. Minnesota's won 3 straight. They have basically been at the top of the conference throughout the entire season. Boston right now, the hottest team in basketball, winners of 9 straight. So there you have it. I see Boston and everyone else in the East. I think Denver's a team to beat in the West. The question is which teams are going to challenge them in the Western Conference. But you watch Denver play right now. Their assist totals are off the charts. Their passes per game are off the charts. Jokic is the best player on the planet. And you can see Michael Malone just slowly turning up the intensity with his group. And once you get over the hump and win a championship, I think it gives you a certain level of confidence because you know what it takes to get the job done. And it's just going to be tough to knock them off. The best question is, who can win 4 games out of 7 in a playoff series against the Denver Nuggets? My guess would be no one in the West, and you're probably going to get a Denver-Boston type matchup. I'll be pulling for Milwaukee. I would love to see Dame get to the finals, but defensively right now, I just don't know if they're good enough to get the job done. And the other just overarching question I have in the NBA is, what is Greg Popovich doing? You get Wemby, one of the greatest prospects we've seen in quite some time, and they're 12-48. They're going to have their 5th consecutive losing season. it feels like he's just robbing the franchise blind. I don't understand. Are they tanking on purpose? Is there someone in the draft they really want? I would have thought with Wemby they'd be much better. And in, 28 minutes a game, 20 points, averaging about 3.5 blocks a game. I mean, the guy's a stud. He's a super stud. So I'm just confused by that whole mess there in San Antonio. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on Blazer Game Day. And we're going to hear from Chauncey Billups a little bit later in the show. Tip-off's coming up at 5, Blazers and Grizzlies. Curtis Long will have your pregame show at 4 o'clock. All right, Blazers game day, Chad doing with you along with Mike Oakes. Hope you're enjoying your Friday afternoon. Some early evening basketball action for you tonight with the Blazers and Grizzlies. As I mentioned before, the injury report's not kind for the Portland Trail Blazers tonight, as they're going to have multiple guys out of the lineup. DeAndre Ayton with the hand sprain is listed as doubtful. Henderson will be out again tonight with the left adductor strain. And that's really unfortunate because the two guys that I care about watching the most right now are Scoot Henderson and DeAndre Ayton. Scoot Henderson, for obvious reasons, his development. And, if you look at this rebuild that they're going through right now, the best way for this team to get, through the darkness and on the other side of it and start positioning themselves to contend again is for that guy to cash in. They need Scoot Henderson to hit because you may not get a pick that high between now and the time that this rebuild is finished. And when you spend, the third pick in the first round on a player you needed to hit. So that's important. And for DeAndre Ayton, the biggest question mark for him, and I've talked to a lot of different guys, it's not about his game, right? Is he the perfect center? No, because like a lot of these traditional bigs that are more back to the basket type guys, you get them away from the basket, it's hard for them to defend. It's not like one of these new age guys like Wembanyama who can defend at all three levels. With his length, he can block shots, he can contest the three-point line. A lot of the bigs, they get away from the basket, they're uncomfortable. But when he gets to his spots, he's got the face-up jumper he can knock down. He was battling down low the other night against Bam Adebayo. He's played really well over the last 13 games. He's been great. Best stretch of basketball in a Trailblazer uniform. The biggest question mark with Ayton, like a lot of these guys at that position, is just engagement. How do you keep those guys engaged? How do you do it? And so I think I was talking with Dwight the other day. See, here's the challenge for DeAndre Ayton. Like right now, they're doing a good job of getting him involved early in games, and he's getting to his spots. He's making buckets. It's energizing him, and he's played terrific basketball. Going into that game against Miami, the previous 12 games before the game we saw against Miami when he had the double-double in the first half, I think he'd averaged like 18 points, 13 rebounds per game, shooting well over 60%, like his best stretch. And he was coming off that dominant performance, 24 points, 19 boards against Charlotte. So the question is, we know he's engaged right now, but what happens, let's say next year, where you have a full allotment of players and he's not the number one option or the number two option, maybe more the number three option? How do you keep him engaged in that type of situation? How do you go to Ayton and reach him on some level where it's like, hey, we're going to get you some touches. You'll have a chance to showcase what you can do, but we need you to focus on these items here first because it's going to make the team better. It's going to put you in a position to have success and the team to have success, but you're not going to be the number one option. So how do you keep a guy engaged like that? Because that's a real, I think, difficult process with a guy like Ayton to keep him engaged. Because when he's engaged, you can see what he can do. Dominant rebounder. He can protect the rim. And I saw him out there in the Charlotte game, directing traffic defensively, letting the young guys know, hey, I got this. You focus on this. I've got protection behind you. Like he was providing some coaching out there on the floor. Now, he did have a couple of issues, I think, where the coaching staff got frustrated with him earlier in the year. But from everyone I've talked to, his teammates love him. And he's very popular within the locker room. The problem is you need him to hit, too, because where else can you find a former number one overall pick at that position with that type of talent and skill set? Well, it's going to be difficult to do. But if he's not going to remain engaged and you can't depend on him, then that's probably not someone you want around long term. But I just think it's too early to make any type of bold decision on Ayton. He, like everyone else, is a product of what's going on right now. He's been on the floor with a bunch of different guys, hasn't been able to have the time to develop continuity or any type of feel with Simons or Scoot or anyone, right? Because they haven't been together long enough. But we have seen it in short bursts where you can see he and Ant developing some chemistry or he and Scoot developing some chemistry. And his teammates are starting to look for him. I really, really do like Ayton, and I want him to work and become the center, that this team can lean on and he can be a part of the future because of his skill set and his talent. He can do so many good things out there. and he finishes at a much higher rate, around the rim than what Dirk did. So I want to see this recent stretch of 13 games continue on throughout the rest of the year. And then he, like everyone else, can enter the offseason with some confidence. Hopefully by then the coaching staff will have a better understanding and a better feel for him in terms of, his strengths, his weaknesses, and how best they can utilize him moving forward. And then I think for the Blazers this offseason, it's an opportunity to go out and make something happen. The Blazers have been, collecting assets now for the last couple of years where you draft Shaedon Sharpe, you draft Scoot Henderson, you collect some draft ammunition. They're going to have 4 picks in the upcoming draft, 2 in the first, 2 in the second. And then they've got some veteran pieces on the roster, guys like Malcolm Brogdon. They have Robert Williams. They've got guys who either can be a part of the future moving forward or guys that they're going to move out. And they're not going to draft 4 players, right? So at some point this summer, you would think with veteran pieces and draft assets, they can consolidate a bit and maybe go out and find a position of need. I mean, I think most people would agree that the biggest position of need right now in this roster is forward. They've been looking for a small forward for quite some time. And if you can go out and find the forward to play next to Jeremy Grant, then all of a sudden you got something to cook with. And you can see the backcourt starting to take shape. My guess would be, and everyone I've spoken with, and this goes back to last year, is like, okay, how long can you keep Ant, Scoot, and Shaedon together before you have to make a decision? Well, at that time, it was like 12 to 18 months, potentially up to 2 years. So if it doesn't happen this summer where they make a decision on which 2 of the 3 guys they're going to keep, then I think that will come at some point during the regular season next year, prior to the deadline, where you say, okay, we're going to move forward with Scoot and Shaedon, or we're going to move forward with Scoot and Ant. Whoever the guys are you decide upon, you got to do that. And they will do that soon. But I think that's going to help, bring some clarity to that situation. My guess would be, based on, following sports for an extended period of time, usually front offices keep the guys that they draft. My guess would be at some point Ant would be the odd man out, probably, because Joe Cronin drafted Scoot and he drafted Shaedon. And very rarely do you see front office guys not hold on to high-valued picks like that they pick themselves. So that'd be my guess. And I like that, too, because with Shaedon and Scoot, you have more size in the backcourt. But, I mean, that's kind of what you see. Like, everyone always asks me, like, what's the hope here? Well, the way I look at it is you go into the offseason, you have 4 picks to work with, you've got some veteran pieces. We know Malcolm Brogdon's going to get moved. So can they go out and land a forward? A legitimate young forward that can come in and start. And then all of a sudden you've got Ayton, Grant, your new forward, and let's say Scoot and Shaedon in the backcourt. Then you've got a defined starting 5 that you can move forward with and really start to develop and really start to get to play the way that you want them to play. And the coaching staff can kind of mold and shape those players into being the guys that they want them to be. That's kind of how I see it. And I think that's where they're at. Because the rebuild, the more I think about it, this is not, and I've said it time and time again, but I think it's wrong. This is not year 1 of a full rebuild. This is year 3. When they made the decision to draft Shaedon Sharpe, that kind of ushered in the approach. They hadn't moved Dame yet, but that was kind of the maneuver right there. We're going to draft Shaedon. The following year, they drafted Scoot. So they've started this process a couple years ago. So they're already into this, and so now with the assets they've acquired, and they've got more flexibility, you go out there and look to start to really shape that starting lineup. And, Joe Cronin's done a pretty good job of acquiring assets to where you can go out there and make something happen with. And that's good. And, this season, the team has been terrible. Like, 15 wins is not good, but I think a lot of that's just a product of the lack of continuity. If you had all of your guys, Malcolm Brogdon for a full season, Ayton, Scoot, Shaedon, all the guys, this is not a 15-win team. It wouldn't look as messy and ugly as it does right now. And there you go. And then in regards to other things they can work on, my guess would be they'll probably look to the Phoenix model after their deal with Roots up, where you go out and look at a legitimate option to provide over-the-air broadcasts, much like they do in Phoenix. Give the games to your fans for free. That's a big win for the franchise, and then you can go out and look for a legitimate streaming option. That'd be my guess there. Everyone's got access to the games. You got the streaming option. That's a big win for the franchise. And then, hopefully by then, you've got your young roster. You've got your team that's moving in the right direction, and you can do a quick turnaround. I mean, really, since 1987, that's when I moved out here. I know a lot of you have been out here longer. Some came maybe a little bit after the time that I got here, but many of you have been out here in the Northwest for a long period of time. We're not used to this. The Blazers have been a perennial playoff contender for years. And there was that stretch there with Mo Cheeks and that period of time with the injuries to Roy and Odin before Dame came in where there were some lean years. But for the most part, it's been, a winning franchise. So we're just not mentally conditioned to this type of activity. If you live in one of these towns like Charlotte or one of these, crap NBA towns, Orlando, these fans have gone through, rebuilds year after year after year. We're just not accustomed to it here in Portland. So we're not really sure how to react. It's like, what's going on here? So I don't know. That's where I'm at. I'm looking at what can be done this summer. I'm looking at the young players and obviously the need to develop, but they've got some pieces to work with. The cap flexibility, draft picks, and veteran pieces that can be utilized in trades to improve the roster. That's just, they do. Now it's just a matter of going out there and making it happen, right? You go through the process to acquire assets, and then when you have the opportunity to strike, you do it. And they put themselves in a position to do it, and hopefully they'll be able to make some things happen and bring more clarity to the roster. But right now it's about development. Even Chauncey mentioned that the other night. He was asked, how do you balance trying to win games now and still develop the young players? And I think his response was, the best that I can. But he did indicate that the number one priority right now, the rest of the way with 25 games to go, is development. So that's why you need Scoot on the floor. That's why it'd be nice to get Shaden Sharp back before the end of the year. That's why you need DeAndre Ayton out there on the floor so he can continue to grow and the coaches get a better feel for what he can do. So that's where we're at. Okay, we'll come back, and then we're going to step into the coach's corner, and we'll hear from Chauncey Billups. Tip-off Blazers Grizzlies coming up at 5 right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
You say Coach's Corner out of the break?
All right, time to check in with Blazers coach Chauncey Billups, coming off the 10-point loss to the Miami Heat. And I think the first question he was asked was about DeAndre Ayton and that fall he took in the first half, and was discussing the x-rays, which I believe came up negative. Tonight, Ayton is listed as doubtful with a hand sprain. Let's check in with Blazers coach Chauncey Billups.
These were negative, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be some further testing done. He was in quite a bit of pain, so we'll see.
I'm sorry.
Say that again. No.
Okay. You guys obviously played a heck of a lot better than Sunday. Aiden goes down, and from that point on, it kind of fell apart. Was it mainly because you lost him, or other things as well?
I mean, this dude had 12 and 10 and a steal and 2 blocks. I mean, at the half, I mean, it's tough to. How can you absorb that? You know what I'm saying? These dudes played, man. My dudes played, man. They played so hard. You know, they played so hard. They gave it all they had. I'm proud as hell of them. You know, obviously we shot the ball much better tonight, but our flow was just much better. And that's a hell of a team over there, you know. And they came out, you know, in the second half and kind of picked up their physicality and called a timeout. Boom. We ended up picking ours up, back up. But it was tough to, you know, I thought DA dominated that first half. I really did. Offensively, defensively, like he dominated the game. So to lose him was, it was tough, but we went out there and fought and scrapped. Y'all already know how I am. Y'all know I don't make no excuses for none of this, you know. We went out and still felt like we had a chance to knock them off. We just couldn't.
Without DA on the floor, looking back at the game now, do you wonder if you could have done anything differently tactically with Ant, with JG, just because of the lack of gravity, the rim running? You've got JG who comes off and downs, Ant who comes off and downs. Is there anything in there having to make that quick adjustment that you think maybe should have done this?
I really don't. You know, you got no rim press. You got nobody. One of the reasons why Ant and Jeremy and those guys were able to kind of get going and get shots is because you have a rim roller. You got a presence at the basket. When you don't have that, it makes it tough. You seen what they did. They started trapping that. They started blowing up Jeremy's pin downs. Nah, there's not that much you could do.
Did you like your execution outside of obviously missing shots against Miami zone?
You know, I thought they would play more zone, to be honest with you. Huh? Well, so much last night, and then the way that we struggled to shoot the ball, the last game, I thought that they would play more zone. I thought we did a pretty good job of getting the ball where we wanted to get it to in the zone. You know, we had a couple good reads. Boom, and had a pretty much wide open shot, missed it. One of the very next time, I guess, Ashton came off. They stayed on that because they didn't want to get boom. He misses the layup. I was very happy with the things that we were able to get, and they have a very unique, really good zone. You know, very effective zone. So we prepared quite a bit in the walkthrough today for their zone, thinking that we would face a ton of it.
DA's is probably having one of his best stretches, if not the best stretch. Does this just add more to the injury frustration that this team has had to deal with?
Yeah, sure. It definitely does. You know, obviously, shoot, I'm hoping that he'll be fine. You know, in a few days, if it's nothing really, you know, obviously it's nothing broken. They'll get some more imaging on it, but I'm hoping that he'll be fine. But man, we'll just see what happens, bro, and we'll figure it out. If he's in, he's out. We do what we always do.
What a drag. What a drag. That's got to get tired after a while. And if you're a coach and you're dealing with injuries all the time, guys in and out of the lineup, it's like, oh, great, DA's down. That's just what we needed. Another injury. It stinks, man. Yeah. All right, for the Trailblazers, I was looking at their schedule. Not the easiest stretch the rest of the way over the final 25 games. So they've got this 3-game road trip that they're staring at right now. Memphis tonight and tomorrow. Both games tip off at 5. They have a 5 o'clock tip Monday in Minnesota against the best team in the Western Conference. Back home, Wednesday, they kick off that 6-game homestand against Oklahoma City, Houston, Toronto, Boston, Atlanta, and the New York Knicks before they take off on a road trip to take on New Orleans and Chicago, back home for games against the Clippers, and the Nuggets. Yikes. That's tough. But that's what the Blazers are facing right now. And they've got challenges with their lineup, with guys who are in and out. They've got challenges with the schedule and the competition they're going to face down the stretch. So hopefully Scoot will get back on the floor as soon as possible and get a chance to play. It's been a while. I don't know about you, but every once in a while there's a guy. It was like this when Nurk came over, in the trade from Denver and Nurk Fever. Like I was excited to watch him play. Obviously Dame. Dame was a, prime time. I love watching him play, but I haven't been this excited about a young player in a long time. I'm not even sure why. I think it might be just his demeanor. I think I take interest in Scoot, not just because of his obvious potential and talent, but I like his demeanor and the way he handles himself. I like the fact that he's happy, always smiling. But when you hear teammates or people around the team that talk about him, they always speak highly of him. He puts in the time. I've got guys, I know a couple of dudes. I got friends who, work out there at the practice facility. Scoot's always out there. A lot of times by himself, putting in time, right? And not everyone does that. Now, who was I listening to the other day? I think it was Julius Randle. He was drafted by the Lakers. And this is early in his career. Kobe was still on the team. And he met up with Kobe out in Newport at like 4 a.m. 4 a.m. for a workout. And all they did for like 2 hours was work on defensive shuffles. Who does that? And Kobe's like, we have to do this because you can't move your feet like that and be a good defender in the NBA. So they did defensive shuffles for like 2 hours and just wearing themselves out. That's the reason why I bring that up, is because those are the type of traits, guys who are willing to put in the time by themselves and work on things that you need to work on, but it's not necessarily enjoyable to work on. Everyone likes to go in the gym and shoot the hoop. It's nice to put shots up, but getting up early at 4 a.m. to go through defensive shuffles, like just thinking about that, that sucks. That just means exertion. You're going to wear yourself out doing things that aren't fun, but you do that stuff because it's going to get you to a point where you can be a better defender, to where you could do things the right way. And that's what I like to hear about Scoot, because he's showing up on his own time, putting in the work, and you can see the development, like even with his shot, like the form, the way he's able to, perform when it comes to the pull-up, the catch and shoot. You can see the difference in his game, and that's because he's putting in a lot of time. And that's what you want from your guys. Put in the work, be willing to listen to your coaches, teammates, the guys who have been around and done it for a longer period of time, and then you get confidence from that. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll come back with the Coors Light Cold Hard Facts. Chad Doing with you. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Tip-off's coming up at 5. Curtis Long will have your Trailblazer pregame show at 4 o'clock. It's Blazers Game Day right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, your Coors Light cold hard fact. Winning solves everything in sports. I learned this yesterday. Ethan Strauss, who is a very good writer, he put out some details on viewership in the NBA. And so far this year, there have been 10 games on cable. And for the NBA, the cable games are either on ESPN. There's an ESPN doubleheader tonight, or, of course, on TNT. And the threshold for the NBA games on cable is like 2 million viewers. And that's tough for the NBA games to reach, 2 million viewers. Well, there have been 10 games so far this year that have reached that threshold, 2 million viewers. The Denver Nuggets are involved in 4 of those games. 4. And the opponents they played in those 4 games were the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Celtics. So clearly, part of the reason why the Nuggets being involved in 4 games, I think, is because of opponent. Boston and L.A. are the 2 biggest brands in basketball, and the Warriors right now, one of the most popular brands because of Steph Curry, who is a global superstar. But I think what happens with Denver is that when you win a championship and you look like a team that has a chance to go back-to-back and win another championship, when you win, people take notice, and they start to tune in because they either like you or they hate you. And so I'm intrigued by that. So when you win, if you want people to show up to your games and fill up the seats so you can perform in front of a packed house, win games. If you want people to tune in and watch your basketball team, win basketball games. Winning takes care of a lot of different issues. The weird part about Denver, like Nikola Jokic is the best player on the planet right now. I truly believe that. But I don't think he's the most popular player in the NBA, and I think it's because a lot of people have a hard time latching on to a European player. I mean, I know it's been like that for me for years. It's much easier for me to identify with the guys who grew up in the States, who played college basketball in the States, and people that maybe grew up around the same area that I did, because I can connect with them on some level, right? Like I grew up in the country in a small town outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Larry Bird grew up in French Lick, Indiana. You know, I didn't grow up in French Lick, but I grew up in the sticks, and I know what that's like. I can relate to that. But I think it's harder for people to latch on to stars like Jokic. I think it's also harder to identify with a guy like Jokic because he's so big. Like, I can't relate to being a giant, standing over 7 feet tall and having that type of skill. I think part of the reason why Steph Curry is so immensely popular, and there's a lot of different reasons. One, he's been on a great team and has won multiple championships, and he's played with big-time stars like Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and they win. And they've been on, national TV a ton, and they've been in the NBA Finals a ton. So people have had a chance to see them, compete now for years. But I think the reason why Steph is so immensely popular, one, because he's one of the most humble global superstars I've ever come across. He's a good guy, easy to root for. But I think the biggest thing is he's undersized for an NBA player. He's not a giant. He doesn't stand at over 7 feet tall. He doesn't have that crazy, fly above the rim athleticism like MJ or Kobe or Dominique Wilkins. He shoots the basketball really well. And when you see young kids now working on their shot, shooting from, deep, way behind the three-point line, Steph Curry impacted an entire generation of basketball players. Just look at Caitlin Clark and her immense popularity right now in women's college basketball. She just announced yesterday she's going to go to the WNBA and forego her final season at Iowa. She's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. But she is wildly popular right now. She's got people flying and driving from all over to come and watch her play. But she was impacted by Steph Curry when she was younger. Because when she was growing up and she was a big fan of basketball, she saw Steph and she's like, I can add that to my game. And I believe she grew up playing around a lot of guys. She played a lot of boys when she was younger. And the best way for her to get her shot off was to shoot from deep. And so the impact that Steph Curry had and the fact that I think people can relate to him because of his size and the fact that he's not a giant makes him immensely popular. I can't relate to Nikola Jokic. 7 foot plus, incredible basketball skill. And, but as time goes on, as I've heard him and get a chance to listen to him, I admire him. I like his personality. But it took me a while to get to that point. I think partly, too, because when Nurk came over, there was that natural rivalry. Nurk felt like he got, snubbed by the Nugs. I sided with Nurk, and so I was pulling for Nurk during that. But over time, I just was like, man, Jokic is very likable. And he plays the game the right way. You'd want to play with Nikola Jokic because if you get to the right spot, he's going to find you. He's going to share the basketball. And as a team leader, when you have someone like that that's willing to do anything and everything to help you win, and he's going to share the basketball with you, most guys like playing with that type of player. So interesting to me. Very interesting. But the Nuggets, as they continue to win, they're going to draw more and more attention. And what's wild about that, I used to live in Denver. It's a football town. And it's been a football town forever. And the Nuggets have always been, down at the bottom of the list because there were other things going on. The Broncos are immensely popular. Their hockey franchise has been wildly successful, the Avalanche. And then you have baseball, which overtook the Nuggets. And the Nuggets, for a long period of time, they had good seasons, but they were never great. And they've had some really bad seasons. And so just recently with this stretch with Jokic, he's emerged as one of the most popular people in the state of Colorado and very recognizable now. And now you got people turning in to check out Nugget games. So I'm fascinated by that. Winning, though, that's the key. You win, you get a championship, and you got a chance to win, one or two more. Because if you look at the Nuggets right now with their roster and the guys they've got and their coach, barring some type of catastrophic injury, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to win more, and they're probably going to go back to back. And as they do that, they'll continue to attract fans. And it's the same thing with the Blazers right now who are going through this, these lean years as they transition out of the stretch with Dame into a brand new era. It's tough now, but as this develops and they start winning, people will tune in, people will show up, and they'll start to watch and pay attention to what's going on. People like winners. They really do. And for the Nuggets, fascinated by that. 4 games, 4 out of the 10 they've been involved in for the cable games with, that threshold of 2 million viewers. But that's what happens when you win. But Jokic, unique. I've thought about this a lot. I've never seen someone quite like him. The best players that I've ever seen, they do things and operate in a way that no one else does. And Jokic is that player. I just can't believe that he brings the ball up the floor the majority of the time like a point guard. He can play out on top. He can run the pick and roll. He can play with his back to the basket. Great shooter, creative shot maker. He's a willing defender, not great, but he's not afraid to compete on that end of the floor. And his vision and IQ are off the charts. So when I see him pass and set up his teammates, I see Larry Bird type vision. But his size and his ability to play down low on the block, he's like any traditional type big center, but yet he can step out and handle the rock behind the three-point line. And he's just doing things I didn't grow up with. The only guy I've seen close to that would be Arvydas Sabonis, who had a great handle, a terrific passer, could shoot the three. But, of course, when he came to Portland, he wasn't the same because he was, his body wasn't the same as when he was younger, playing in Lithuania. During his heyday, he was dominant. And that's why everyone talks about if the Blazers would have gotten Sabonis sooner, that team would have won championships because you replace Duck with a young Arvydas in the lineup and they would have been unreal. But that's, even Rick Adelman, when he was at the game the other night when Denver was in town, they were asking about Jokic, because his son coaches under Malone on staff. He was marveling at Jokic. And he doesn't even know how you would come up with a game plan to slow him down or defend him because if you double him, he's going to find the open man. It's just he's nearly impossible to defend. And that's what all the greats are. All the greats, and I think Chauncey said it after that game, it's like, look, he's seen every coverage. It's not like you're going to surprise him with something out there. If you throw something at him, he's already seen it, and he's going to be able to counter. So you just hope that on the night when you face him, that he's not annihilating you. I don't think doubling him is a good idea. That's probably not the right approach. You got to find a guy and just make him work for everything he gets. Because if you double him, he's just too good of a passer. He'll find the open man. So we'll see how things continue to shake out. But I would be surprised if Denver doesn't emerge from the Western Conference and represent in the NBA Finals. They're that good. And I don't like it. I'm not a Nuggets fan. I didn't want to buy into them last year, but they're legit. Legit. They get it done on both ends. And Michael Malone he's kind of one of those crazy coaches. But, he knows his guys really well. He knows how to push the buttons, how to motivate, and do all the things you need him to do as a coach to get things done. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll come back with your keys to the game. Tip-off coming up at 5. Blazers begin a 3-game road trip. It's a quick one tonight and tomorrow in Memphis, and then Monday in Minnesota before they come back home for a 6-game homestand Wednesday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Curtis Long standing by. He's got your Trailblazer pregame show coming up at 4 across the Trailblazers Radio Network. All right, a couple of things for the Trailblazers tonight. Number one, you got to protect the basketball. If they're going to have a chance to win tonight, you got to make sure you don't give the Grizzlies easy buckets, and that means cutting down on the live ball turnovers, which continues to be an issue for the Portland Trailblazers. So protect the basketball, value those possessions. I'd also like to see, with Ayton not on the floor, just continuing to involve multiple guys. Player movement and ball movement. I think they had 24 assists in the game against Miami. But let's get the passes per game up and the assist numbers up and get multiple guys involved. The more you move, the better shots you're going to get, and hopefully give a chance for some of the younger guys to knock it down. And then on top of that, without the size of Ayton in the middle, rebounding is going to be a challenge. So that means that you're going to have a collective effort by the entire group. And the Blazers, to their credit, over the last couple of games, have done a great job of rebounding as a team. And the reason why that's key, for one, if you control the glass, the defensive boards, you can control the tempo and play more at the pace that you want. But I think on top of that, with the offensive glass, just giving yourself as many opportunities for second chance points that you can, because you want to put yourself in a position to where if you're not shooting the ball extremely well, you can scrap and get some rebounds and get some of those second chance point opportunities. Because, with certain guys on the floor, you may not have the same type of offense. And maybe it's an opportunity for Duop Reef to, really, emerge and play a bigger role tonight. I like Reef in his game. I like pick and pop centers, but he's smart, knows where his spots are on the floor, and can get in a position to get some points up on the board. So I want to see him shoot, be aggressive, and make a difference out there. So I'm a big fan of Duop Reef, an opportunity for him to shine tonight. But I think those are the keys. Protect the basketball, prevent the live ball turnovers, move bodies, move the ball, get as many open looks on offense as you possibly can, the best shot opportunities by making the next pass. And then after that, get Duop Reef involved and let him make a difference. Because the Trailblazers, are going to be challenged. I mean, that's just the bottom line. They're going to be challenged with, some of the guys they're going to have out there on the floor. It is nice to see Chris Murray getting an opportunity to play. And, even though he's not shooting the ball particularly well, I like the fact that they're using some of these opportunities with guys out to get other dudes on the floor. All right, Moses Brown is available to play tonight at Memphis. Ayton and Minaya are both out. So Ayton downgraded to out. He was listed as doubtful. So we'll see how things shake out tonight. I would guess, let's see here. Let's see, you probably have, my guess is they'll go with the same. Probably be Murray and Ant in the backcourt. You probably put Duop Reef at center. And then they'll probably go Tamani Kamara and Jeremy Grant at forward. That's probably going to be your starting lineup. And, at least for Kamara, he's coming off a strong performance against Miami. So, again, part of, this stretch, the final 25 games, for the young guys, whether it be Chris Murray or Tamani Kamara, making the most of the opportunities that you get. Getting a chance to play, cashing in on that, and showing the coaches that you can listen and be able to execute the way they want. You got to make the most of your opportunity, and they're going to have a chance to do that. And that's why I like the attitude of Tamani Kamara. Just understanding his strengths, his weaknesses, and what he wants to do. And he talked about that after the game against Miami.
One thing that I hate the most about who I am right now is being sometimes maybe a liability offensively. So just being able to work through that and be able to find my ways where can I get my shots and keep working. I know I'm a great shooter. I know I can take care of the ball. I know I can do all those things. So it's just being able to keep putting that work in and trust what I do on a daily basis. So I wouldn't say a liability like I can't play offense, but I'm just saying like in our system I feel like we have great players who have different strength and stuff like that. So if I'm on the court when it's critical decisions and we need a three or we need a shot, I take a lot of pride in being able to stay on the court. So I think that's why I'm trying to find myself, being able to stay there and not being the type of guy that just in for defense.
That's a guy that's very aware. That was an honest assessment. And for him, he talked about always learning.
My goal was just try to get comfortable, try to understand my role and what I can do and what I should do. And I feel like that's something I'm getting better every day and improving every day and just keep working, man. I feel like it's my first year. I have so much more to learn, and as a team, we have so much more to learn. So I'm just excited for what's coming up for us, for sure.
There you go. That's what it's all about. Make the most of the opportunity. But I like guys that are well aware of who they are and what they need to work on. We've heard Bills talk about that before. For Kamara, it's about being a better offensive player, making shots, and not just being a defensive guy. For Anthony Simons, it's about learning to do more than just work with the ball in your hands, being off ball, being able to move around and get open looks and score that way. Also become a better defender so teams don't target you. And for Scoot Henderson, it's about, just continuing to work, letting the game slow down, working on his shot so he's not, a liability on the offensive end to where defenses don't honor him. You got to be able to step up and knock down shots. So, great opportunity for the young players. All right, here's what's coming up the rest of the way. So, Curtis Long's got your Trailblazer pregame show next, and that will run up until 5 o'clock. Travis Demers and Michael Holton will have the call, and then following the game, I will be back for fifth quarter. And I'll take your phone calls. We'll break down everything that happens tonight, and we'll see how things shake out. Tomorrow, it's the same setup and same situation. The Blazers will play in Memphis again against the Grizzlies. I'll have game day tomorrow starting at 2:30 with the tip-off at 5 o'clock. And then Monday, same thing. Game day at 2:30. Tip-off against the Timberwolves at 5. So you have a 3-game road stretch before they come back home to meet Oklahoma City on Wednesday at Motor Center. That will kick off a 6-game homestand. So that's kind of what we got in store for you over the next few days here on 620 Rip City Radio. So let's sit back and see how things unfold tonight for the Trailblazers. And DeAndre Ayton's out tonight. Hopefully he'll be able to go tomorrow. If not, maybe on Monday. They could really use his size on Monday against Minnesota. But there you go. Appreciate your time. Big thanks to Mike Oakes. We're back after the game tonight for the fifth quarter. Tip-off's coming up at 5. Curtis Long standing by. All right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.